1 in 3 is intended for mature audiences. Episodes contain explicit content and may be triggering as they often include violence and other varying forms of abuse such as emotional, psychological, sexual, and physical. In most cases, names have been changed to protect all involved. Please note, statements and opinions of guests do not necessarily reflect those of my own. Hi, Warriors. You're listening to 1 in 3, and I'm your host, Ingrid. Over the last 2 weeks, I have shared parts 1 and 2 of an anonymous submission. The author has taken us along with her description of what seemed to start out as a perfect relationship. But nothing is perfect. She describes love bombing and gaslighting behaviors, along with financial, emotional, psychological, and reactive abuse. If you haven't listened to episodes 10 or 11, I suggest you do so because today is part 3 and the conclusion. Just as a reminder, this is told from a first-person point of view. So recap, red flags were kind of present in the first episode. Red flags were clearly present in the second episode. And she finds out that he had been cheating, and it ends with, he gave me 2 STDs. So here is part 3. He would have rages, was unpredictable, and I never knew when it would occur. I could say something I felt was funny, and he would laugh, but the next time he may get angry, rage, and storm out of the door for the same thing. His anger was my fault. No one had ever made him this angry before. If only I could be a better partner to him, he wouldn't be so angry. He wouldn't need to cheat. He wouldn't feel so alone and need to talk to other women. I was walking on eggshells. He raged and stormed out of multiple public venues. Always my fault for saying the wrong thing at the wrong time to him. I remember being at Topgolf and one of the lights were out on the sign. He said he could hit it that far and make more lights go out. One of my kids, in a fun, teasing way, said, "Yeah, let's see it." He flipped out. He started raging at all of us, saying, "You are all making fun of me. I'm not dealing with that anymore, especially from little kids." And I said lightly, "We aren't making fun of you. Go have fun and hit the ball. We are just joking around." So he sat back down and pouted like a toddler, crossed arms and everything. He said, "I'm not hitting the ball anymore. I'm not playing anymore." I said, "Fine. I'm sorry if anything we said offended you, but none of us meant it that way. We were having fun and joking." He said he didn't like it and was bothered by it, and we should respect that and not joke around like that. I responded with, "Okay, I'm sorry you took it that way." He got up and started yelling, "That's not even an apology," by saying, "You took it that way." He cussed and screamed and grabbed his kids and stormed out. The next day, he texted like all was well. I later brought it up and told him I was concerned with what happened, especially in front of the kids. That it even worried me that his kids just followed him out like it was normal behavior. His response was that his kids were obedient and well-behaved, so of course they followed him, whereas mine are terrible and disrespectful, so of course they would have questioned me if the situation were reversed.
Sure.
Mm-hmm. He would rage and call me names. I was regularly called a retard, a child, a high schooler, a mean girl, a bitch, and a cunt. He said I was manipulative, shifty, a liar.
Oh my gosh.
He would tell me I have so many character flaws. Or he would speak to me like a child. When I asked him to stop speaking to me like a child, his response would be that he has to speak to me that way because I am a child. I started recording conversations and recorded one long rage attack on me. I showed it to him and let him listen to it. I told him it was abuse and it cannot happen ever again or I was leaving. He got extremely defensive, saying never to use the word abuse again as it would ruin his career, and that if I didn't always make him so mad, then he wouldn't need to rage. He also added that if I ever brought it up again, he would ruin me for recording the rage in the first place. He brought it up over and over again for the next several years, always an example of what I made him do. He raged many times after that, but that was the first. Years.
I was just thinking the same thing.
Once again, he said it was always a wrong time to bring things up. I couldn't bring them up immediately because I had to ask permission to speak. And if I waited, it's because I didn't care enough. I would try to explain and talk to him, but he wouldn't accept any of my explanations. He would call them excuses. I tried and tried. I journaled, went back to see what I had done wrong, what I could have done better for next time, but the answers were never there. It was exhausting. Things I laid my heart out about and was vulnerable about, things that hurt me in the past or my worries and concerns I had, he would seem to support at first, then come back and use against me later. I couldn't have my own opinions. It wasn't that he actually said that, but when I had my own opinions that differed from his, it would inevitably cause an argument and a fight. So I just started keeping my opinions to myself. And that turned into him saying that I had nothing of value to add to conversations, that I only spoke on a superficial level, that I was superficial and shallow and not very smart. He would say that I have nothing of substance to add to anything. I realized it was because when I did add anything or my own opinions, they would be shot down. I would be questioned on it. He would ask me where I got my information from to form my opinion, and then ask me to actually show him where I got it from, like it was a test at school and I had to provide references. If I was unable to provide the actual references, he would tell me my thoughts and opinions were not accurate and invalid.
My gosh.
But did he provide references for his? Nope. He even did this down to my religion. My faith and beliefs are very important to me. I attend church regularly, and yes, he would go with me sometimes. But then he would question me and question things and attack me for having beliefs. Like, do I really think Noah built an ark? Did I really think Moses parted the seas? In a very sarcastic, demeaning tone. Like I was an idiot for believing that. And when I would say yes, he would question me and say just because the Bible says it happened doesn't mean that it did, and to show him proof. I would explain there is no proof. It's about faith, and it's okay if he feels one way and I feel another, but to please not put me down for my own beliefs. He questioned me so much, I dreaded attending church with him because I would have to deal with his questions afterward. It caused stress because a fight would happen, and I would find myself scrambling around to defend and explain and essentially plead my case. I never told him I didn't want him to come to church, but I did stop going out of my way to overtly ask him to go. He turned that on to me, saying, if church is so important to me and he is so important to me, then why am I not wanting him there? I must not love him.
It was like the one thing she had left.
I know.
That was hers.
Mm-hmm. He would block me on Facebook and Instagram. I suspect it was one way he picked up women and made himself look single. It started at first as him telling me he was going off social media because he was sick of seeing people's negative posts, political posts, etc. Then it progressed to him going off because he felt hurt that I wasn't posting enough about him or with him. I even went through and looked, and there was plenty. I tried so hard to post enough to make him content and happy and not hurt over feeling left out, but it was never enough. He went off again. Then I realized he was not going off social media. He was blocking me and my friends and my family. I approached him about it, and he said, I had to block you because you were hiding me, and it was too painful, and my mental health was suffering. So again, I begged and pleaded for him to unblock me and be my friend again. I would do better. I would post more. I tried. I posted more and more, yet it was never enough. He kept saying he was watching from another account and still didn't feel like a fiancé on Facebook. He would say how so many women are reaching out to him through Facebook because he appeared single, and it was my fault since I was hiding him on social media. I can tell you, I never hid him, ever. He would block and unblock, sometimes allow me to be his friend. All the while, I sat there wondering how I could do better, yet knowing in my gut it was fucked up and I was allowing my fiancé to do this to me. But I didn't want to give up on him, on us, on what once was and what I pictured could still be. If only I tried harder and did things different. I go back now and can see it was all part of his control and abuse and gave him an easy way to look single while placing the blame on me. I learned to keep my mouth shut. I stopped voicing my opinions and beliefs and stopped bringing up things that bothered me. It just wasn't worth the argument. He began to attack my parenting and how my children were, how I was too close to them and how they were too wild, and even how that they got along too well and were too close to each other, too dependent on one another, that it wasn't normal or healthy for them to have that close of a relationship that they do. Their dad.
With their siblings?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh, and listen.
Okay.
Their dad had died. That changes family dynamics greatly. My kids do get along well and do have a very close relationship. 2 of them are twins. He told me, I know. He told me they were too perfect and that I pushed them too hard and they would be meth addicts by 16 years old.
Wow.
Yes, he said meth addicts.
I gotta say, if her family's doing so well after their father killed himself, like that's a strong foundation of a family.
Absolutely.
So she's doing something amazingly right.
Absolutely.
What a piece of okay. Everyone knows I think he's a piece of shit. I'll stop saying that.
Okay. I started reading parenting books, trying to fix my parenting skills.
Oh, gosh.
I know. Trying to change my identity from mom to wife at his request. I wrote him letters promising to change and fix myself and my kids to be what he wanted and needed. I didn't feel like there was an issue, but if the person closest to me is concerned, then there must be. It was complete confusion. Gaslighting. I started questioning myself again. Meanwhile, they were at school excelling socially, academically, emotionally. All the feedback I got from teachers, coaches, and others were excellent reports. When my youngest was in the 1st grade, the first week of school, he stood up for a friend on the playground who had been pushed by another child. He told the other child not to do it again or he would beat him up. The teacher had to call me to let me know what happened. I shared that story with him, and he took it and ran with it. A couple of weeks later, he told me that he met some guy at the gym who told him that my child was a bully and disliked and feared by most of the kids at school, that the teachers hated him as well. He was difficult and rude and had a bad reputation. I had been a parent at that school at the time for 8 straight years and know most of the teachers on a personal friend level. I actually started reaching out to his teacher on a weekly basis to check in because he kept feeding me stories of things that had happened as he ran into this guy at the gym and even others in random places. He never knew their names, which should have been a clue, but it wasn't. I was so worried about my child. The teacher eventually called me and said, "Miss, you need to relax and chill out. He's doing amazing. There are absolutely no problems with him. In fact, he's probably the sweetest and most caring kid in the class. That's why he had the issues the first week, for caring about his friend." I literally thought I was going crazy.
What a horrible guy. Like to bring her child into it.
Yes.
And to like make up, and what random stranger would go up to the fiance of a, like, oh,
I know.
I hate him. But, okay. Sorry. Done.
Eventually, I felt I would do nothing right. I was constantly walking on eggshells. He was always saying he was hurt, and I was always trying to find the answer to fix things. Narcissists prey on empathetic people who are compassionate and fixers. They manipulate our feelings, knowing we will try to make them better when they claim to be hurt over some slight they perceive. I was always on the alert to how his mood was. Would he rage and call me names and cuss me out? Would he laugh and love on me? I never knew. I was always trying to figure out what triggered him, how to do better, so I wouldn't cause him to yell, scream, call names, cheat again. I would sit down and try to talk to him when things were calm, and it would seem to start off okay, but then would always turn onto me. I stopped bringing it up. We went to therapy together. I was always open and honest at our sessions. Afterward, he would attack me verbally, saying I was lying to the therapist, that I was a manipulator, that he didn't believe me or anything I say in therapy. Eventually, I stopped really opening up, even in therapy. Through all the bad things he would always tell me, all would be okay if I would just get out of my box, grow and mature, move in with him, and get married. That he loved me so much, that's all he wanted. Sounds amazing, right? This man loves me so much. He is so hurt over the fact I won't marry him or move in with him that he's doing all of these things to abuse me. My gut kept screaming, no. He would tell me how if we moved in together, I could work part-time or not at all. But I didn't want that. I love my career and my job and wouldn't want it any other way. I told him that. His kind offer of being lucky enough to work part-time or quit altogether slowly turned into him saying I was being selfish by saying I wanted to keep my career and current job, not work less hours. That meant I was choosing my job over him, that he doesn't want to be with someone who values her career over her husband, and if that's what I wanted, maybe we should reconsider the relationship. Another aspect of control and coercion. And I'm going to add in isolation.
Yeah, I agree.
Making her end up completely dependent on him.
Financially, too. Yep.
Every discussion turned into a circular conversation. If you have ever had one, you know what it is. If you haven't, you probably have no clue they even exist. The round and round, bringing stuff up from every old argument, never finding resolution, going on for hours or days, and could have been started by something as simple as forgetting to flush the toilet. I could say, "You forgot to flush a toilet," and he would say back that it was the wrong time and the wrong tone, or even, "Why don't you just flush it?" Then it turns into how I handled it, and in the end, it all ends up being my fault. I was always trying to think one step ahead to prevent it. It was exhausting. But in the end, it is always a losing battle. No matter what I said or how I said it, it would be picked apart and thrown back at me. If I disagreed, I was told I was wrong. If I agreed, I was told I was being passive-aggressive. In the end, it was just exhausting. He was jealous of anyone I spent time with besides him, even my own kids. He controlled me and trained in covert ways to stop spending time with my friends and family that I didn't even realize it happened. By the end, he had pulled me away from most of my friends and family, and he had reasons he hated each and every one of them. He had told me over and over why they all were terrible people, not good for me, not supportive of me, and obviously don't love me, and how he was the only one who would always truly be there for me and love me. I finally walked away after 5.5 years when I found out from a mutual friend that he had attended a party with a woman to celebrate her and her dad's birthday. What's funny, or not so funny, is that the morning after the party, he told me he had to block me on Facebook after he realized that months earlier I had been flirting with another man on Facebook, and it was so hurtful for him to see. I had not been flirting. I had been discussing saving money on gas for my car. A few days later, despite being blocked, I saw the pictures posted on Facebook of him and her at the party when the mutual friend sent them to me. His sudden need to block me for something that happened months earlier and was not even what he perceived it to be now made sense. He found a way to blame me for him blocking me because he didn't want her or I to realize the other one existed. In typical narcissist fashion, he continued to reach out to me for months, saying how he really loved me. I was still his soulmate. He still hoped to marry me, wanted to be with me, wanted to get together, and always added that all he wanted was me, but that I didn't want him and couldn't partner with him how he wanted me to, how he wished I would have chosen him, but wouldn't. He never took any accountability for anything he had ever done to tarnish the relationship. Months later, I realized how damaging this contact was to my own healing. I was in weekly therapy and struggling with depression, anxiety, and panic attacks, and was actually needing medication. I also realized how terrible it was for me to be talking to him behind the new girlfriend's back, even if he cheated on me with her in the first place. It was still not fair to her. I reached out to her to let her know what was going on and sent her a few of his messages to me. I told her I was so sorry to do this, but going forward was blocking him and would not take part in the discussions again. I'm not sure what I expected to happen, but she continued the relationship with him. I have also had to learn that I can't save everyone, Everyone has to walk their own journey and experience life in their own time. Will he change for her? Unlikely, but I hope and pray that she sees the red flags before I did and gets out sooner and doesn't have the experience and the pain that I did. No one should. I am still in weekly therapy, taking medication, attending church regularly, and working on myself and healing. I've put my boys through a lot, but so far they have all used what they have seen and experienced in a positive way. I could go on with the stories. There are many, but the common theme is that out of control, manipulation, gaslighting, projection, abuse. I spent several years always thinking it was me, seeking out therapy and even medications to fix me. I just wanted to be fixed. If I could be fixed, then I could make him happy. I thought I was crazy, that I was broken. I was called terrible names. I felt like I could never make him happy, yet he was so happy and perfect for everyone else. I was asked, why does he treat me this way? It must be me. And he was so happy and perfect at the beginning. I was everything he wanted. I just wanted those first couple years to come back to me, to us. I wanted to be what it was. I hoped and prayed it would. If only then he would be happy. And there would be times when he would be happy and life would be perfect. Then would crash down and come smack me out of nowhere. The happy times became less and less, and the anger and bad times became more and more. I never knew when the mood would turn and it would all crash down and hit hard, not physically, but mentally. The screaming, the rages, the storming out, the yelling, calling names, the overtly calm, passive-aggressive manipulation, turning everything on to me. He had to cheat because of me. He had to yell because of me. No one makes him mad like I do. I was constantly walking on eggshells. I prayed to God to help me find peace. All I wanted was a person I fell in love with back. But what I didn't realize is it was a mask. It was fake. It was a show he put on to hook me in, and once I was hooked, he set out to destroy me. There are different types of narcissists. There are the ones that are pretty obvious and easy to spot, but then there are covert narcissists. They are exceptionally good at gaslighting and passive aggressiveness, which leaves you thinking you are the problem. Like I said, at first, I went to therapy, couples and individuals, seeking to change me so I could be better and make him happier. If you have been through a bad relationship where you know you were treated terribly, but don't quite know how to explain it because a person didn't seem controlling and abusive in the traditional way, or didn't fit the typical pattern you hear or read about, this could be it. Some of these things seem like something we all do sometimes, or things that we all say. When you are with a person who does these things daily, intensely, covertly, confusingly for years, it is absolutely devastating. I kept reading about abusive relationships and everything centered around control. It was confusing for me because I didn't think I was being controlled at the time. When I walked through specific situations with my therapist and we talked it out, it all started to become so clear. I am only sharing a couple examples of what happened to me. I was controlled so subtly that I didn't even notice it. Even something as small as mood change. He never said I couldn't spend time with my friends. In fact, he told me the opposite. I'm not going to tell you who you can and who can't hang out with. But anytime I talked about my friends or went out with them, he would send me text after text, insisting on my attention, starting arguments about anything. Yes, over time, my friends started to dislike him and even got into an argument with him after they saw me in tears about affairs and things he did that hurt me over and over, or saw me anxious and stressed seeing him blow up my phone at dinner. He would say he feels lonely while I'm out, and if my friends aren't answering their partners, that's one thing, but we aren't married. We don't live together, so I owe him more. Thank goodness for the amazing friends I have who have welcomed me back with open arms. He never said I couldn't volunteer at my kids' school events or go to their activities, but there would be a mood change or an argument started about some other topic that would take my attention away from what was going on while I was there, along with comments of how I don't need to do everything for my kids. They need to learn to be without me, to be more independent. I don't need to be at every game, every field trip. It was taking time away from us. I had the greatest feeling of happiness and freedom and relief this year when I signed up for the 5th grade party committee and to be co-room mom, knowing I didn't have to explain myself or my motives to anyone else and fearing the comments that would ensue. Things that should be fun would end up not being fun at all. Eventually, I stopped signing up for things for my own children, or did it and kept it a secret, and rarely went out with friends. I ended up doing so many fun family things and family vacations alone. If I brought up even the idea of something fun for the family or a family trip, it would always be an argument about how I brought it up at the wrong time, in the wrong way, or wasn't thinking of us as partners, only myself, or already had it planned before telling him. He canceled many trips at the last minute, and I ended up going alone and would spend the entire time arguing with him over text while my kids were asking me to please stop arguing while we were trying to have fun. I was always told I wasn't a good partner. I didn't love enough, I wasn't vulnerable enough, and if I could only open and trust, then he wouldn't need to seek out the attention of others. If only I could blend the family, get married, and be a family under the same roof, things would be better. I even bought a house hoping for that. I can see looking back on it how different his moods were based on who we were with and what we were doing and who made the plans. I didn't see it as it happened. I didn't even see myself disappearing. I just wasn't there anymore. When looking back on arguments that we had, I start to see the control there as well. Every time I brought up something that bothered me, it could be as small as miscommunication or as big as an affair. The argument would inevitably end with me being the one promising to change and make things better. I would be the one apologizing to him. I would be the one asking him not to leave because I would change and do better. Can you imagine bringing up being upset over something you clearly have a right to be upset about, like an affair? And by the end of it, feeling guilty and sorry that you hurt the person? It doesn't even sound possible, but I promise you it is, because I did it over and over. Don't think for a second I am stronger than that. I would never let that happen to me. Everyone who knows me tells me they are shocked by my story, or some who don't believe it. I constantly feel the need to validate myself and prove it with the evidence I have, even to myself. It is a terrible feeling. This is part of why I'm telling it. It can happen to anyone. These people like strong, resilient, positive people, empathetic people with a strong sense of justice and kindness. It really makes for the perfect target. I am forgiving, yet strong. I tend to push down my feelings and move on and give second and third and fourth chances and hope for change. Victims of this particular type of abuse are often people that surprise everyone. I hear, wow, I never thought she would put up with that. My optimism, empathy, strength, resilience made me never want to give up on him, on us, made me determined to make the changes in myself that he needed to make us work. I got angry with the women he cheated with and myself instead of him, because how dare they go after him and manipulate him and suck him in when he was with me, and why couldn't I figure out how to do the things necessary to keep him loyal? I had 2 couples therapists hint to me what they felt was going on. They told me to read books about narcissism and abuse. When I started telling my story to my own therapist and going through specific incidents, looking over texts, listening to arguments and discussions that we had, it all became so clear. I joined an online support group based on the recommendations of my therapist and became more open on social media and with my family and friends. The more I read and hear of others' stories, the more memories that come back to me. Some things I had even forgotten about or had seemed so minor to me despite being toxic and abusive, because that was the point I had gotten to. I see it all so clearly now. Learning about covert narcissistic collapse was also very eye-opening. It helps to understand why the pattern doesn't always fit and why there are scattered incidences of intense emotional abuse that is 1,000 times worse than the low-level abuse of everyday life. I say low level for lack of a better word of putting it. Abuse is abuse, period. But it helps explain those rage-filled outbursts that occur infrequently enough that you have a hard time calling it abuse. It's abuse regardless of how frequent it is. It's abuse even if you are the one who is initially upset. It's abuse if they manage to make you feel like you led them to it. They are really good at that, and they actually believe that. They really do think that you caused it. I used the term abuse one time in my relationship after the first rage incident and never used it again until recently. I was told it can't be abuse. Abusers don't have careers, and using that term put his entire life into jeopardy. I never used that term with him again. When you're in a relationship like this with someone, even when abuse isn't happening at the time and things are normal, there is always this underlying negative energy, walking on eggshells. Even when the person is being helpful or doing something that seems nice, you are scared it will come back to bite you in the butt. There's this constant passive-aggressive control happening. You're constantly walking on eggshells, waiting for the next turn. It even happens in front of other people, but it's so subtle that only you know what's happening. You know you will hear about it later. You can't say anything because other people would think you're crazy and making things up. You can't say anything in private because it is so subtle that they can just deny it and make you think you're imagining things or go off on a rage and turn it all back on you. You can't put your finger on it. You can't explain it. It makes you feel crazy because there's not something actually defined, and the person has already been gaslighting you since day one. This realization, combined with what I have learned about trauma bonding, has been exceptionally healing for me. I hope it can help someone else. These things are difficult for me to talk about. There's still a huge part of me that questions if I'm crazy, if what I went through was my fault, if I imagined it, if I could have done anything different for him, for us, for the relationship. I am constantly asking my therapist for validation, showing her old texts, recordings, and she always says the same thing. That is abuse. I spent so long protecting the person who did these things to me. Over time, my friends saw hints and questioned me. I opened up to them about some things. They learned about the affairs. They started to dislike him for what he was doing. Yet I was told it was my fault they felt that way because I went outside the relationship and shared our problems with them. There is also shame and anger at myself for putting up with it for so long and for letting it happen in the first place, for allowing my boys to see me treated this way, for allowing my boys to think it was normal. My sweet boys would say, "Mom, why do you let him treat you that way? Why does he make you cry all the time? Why don't you tell him to stop? If only then he would not." I have friends who have no idea anything was ever wrong. My coworkers and acquaintances had no clue. And, as is usually the case, he is a fun-loving, outgoing, hilarious, smart, and charming person who is well-liked and loved by many 2 steps away from him. This is the other thing that kept me in. He's amazing. Why can't I appreciate that? Look at all these people who love him. All the other women who want him. What is wrong with me? That is the only side most people will ever see, the amazing side. Some of those people that love him are also loved by me and always will be. They have a different perspective and a different experience of him, and that is completely valid, and I do not begrudge them that. I rarely talk about any of this. I know I have been more open lately, but my intentions are good. This is my story, and I'm telling it. I'm not talking about it to hurt anyone, nor am I trying to publicly air dirty laundry. I wish for nothing but everyone's true happiness. I want everyone involved to heal and have a fulfilling life. Yes, I am angry at times, sad at times, confused at times, all of it, but I do not wish harm or pain on anyone. I do hope this never happens to anyone else. I have hidden so much pain for so long that I honestly cannot stand the thought of someone else going through this and feeling like I have for so long. It slowly chips away at you until you have no idea who you are anymore. Eventually, you shut down completely and just hope for calm times and no arguments while fearing the worst. The effort to even try to get out is too much. The highs are farther and fewer between, and the lows are lower and more frequent. Eventually, you are just happy for a few moments of calm and peace. I don't want anyone else to feel that way, and if me talking about it helps someone, then it has to be worth it. I also think it's very healing for me to just let it out after hiding it for so long. One last thing, please stop using the term narcissist to describe anybody who does something you don't like, any type of abuse, or any person who might have a big ego. This is an actual personality disorder. The term gets thrown around so much that I am even afraid to use it as a description. I always feel the need to preface with, I am not using this term lightly. My therapist has to constantly validate me that it was what it was. Not all narcissists are abusers, and not all abusers are narcissists. Some people are both. I suffered both. There is a ton of misinformation out there. I am speaking out for change. I want to get more support for others who cannot afford it or don't know where to find it. Laws should be changed to better protect those who have suffered from emotional and verbal abuse. Right now, abusers who are not physical have no accountability in my state and walk away scot-free to destroy their next victim, while the previous victim is left suffering and alone, seeking out help that is expensive and hard to find. We need to hold these abusers accountable for their actions. At this time, I am continuing to grow, change, and heal. I'm in therapy and I'm working on myself and being the best mom I can to my sweet boys. I have a career I love and have started re-engaging with friends and family who have stepped in to support me. It is a process. If anyone else is going through this, please reach out, find someone who gets it. Support groups online, seeing others in different stages of abuse and healing, knowing you aren't alone, that there is a light at the end of a very dark and sometimes never-ending tunnel, along with a therapist who has been there, have been lifesavers for me. Literally. What I love about survivors sharing their stories is their willingness to let us into the darkest and most vulnerable moments of their lives. They don't do it for vengeance or notoriety or sympathy, but because they want to help others, perhaps to help you. I would like to thank this individual who painted such a clear and descriptive picture of her experiences. If you are interested in sharing your story, please send me an email. The link is in the show notes. And as always, I will be back next week with another story for you. Until then, have each other's back and always remember, there is hope and you are not alone. Find more information, register as a guest, or leave a review by going to the website 1in3podcast.com. That's the number 1, IN, the number 3, podcast.com. Follow 1 in 3 on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at 1 in 3 Podcast. To help me out, please remember to rate, review, and subscribe. 1 in 3 is a .5 Pinoy production. Music written and performed by Tim Crow.